Let's look at the cursor and range controls. Now I've loaded in the sample of me saying Ashlight, and let's slow it down so we can kind of hear what's happening, because it's a word we can sort of see and hear where in the waveform it's being triggered. Now the cursor controls relate to how the cursor is going to move through the sample and scan and trigger the audio. When we change the start position, we can explore the sample for new material by starting in different places. So here at about 10 o'clock, it's starting right here. Now if I move it up, it'll start probably about here. And therefore changes the rhythm at which it repeats. I can start later, be in here somewhere. So that's one way of exploring the material. Let me just turn scan down. We'll get to that in a moment. Yeah, that's a little more clinical way of looking at it. So it's starting here. And if I go earlier, starts here. And of course, this is working within the boundaries that we set here with the range controls. And by the way, when this is in length mode, it turns into a length control where we can shorten the length, or if we move the left hand, we move the whole range like that. So we can either move them independently or together like that. Now, we have poly mode, and when this is on, each new note that's triggered will have its own dedicated cursor. So each note can play grains from different positions. So for example, I'll play a note and then start another one. They're all moving independently, where when that's off, we're in mono mode, they all sync up and move together, even though they're started at different times. Versus separately. Now here we have two modes, free and continuous. When it's in free mode, the cursor moves freely within the boundaries according to the scan parameter. And the main difference between free and continuous mode is that in free mode, when this is enabled, if we modulate either the boundaries or the position, it's not going to change the cursor position. And when it's deactivated in the continuous mode, then when we modulate those parameters, it does change the cursor position. So let me demonstrate that. I'm going to go to LFO1 and let's set this to a nice regular sine wave, do something fast so we can get a sense of it. And let's listen in free mode and dial up some depth. And if we're in continuous mode, so the cursor position is moving around as we expect versus not being modulated. And let's zero that by command clicking. Now we have the scan parameter, and that adjusts the cursor speed and direction as it moves throughout the sample. So I can bring it up. And we can sync it to tempo with that little note icon. So it's moving very fast, or we can have it move slower. Let's set the half note when we're in sync. You get interesting effects like that. We're in poly mode, so they have independent triggering. And that's off. We can go negative. Or positive. So very interesting to scan through at different speeds like that. And we can introduce jitter, which adjusts a kind of random position change that's applied to the cursor position. And we can go up to 40% of the cursor range. So I'll dial that up. And I'll do that same thing now with this up. So it introduces a randomization. If I go really short here, we can get a nice staccato rhythmic kind of feel. Let's hear with a click. Then we have the range controls, and as you've seen, these adjust the boundaries, and we can modulate these as well. And we have the length change, but we also have bounce edges. And when this is on, it sets the cursor's behavior when it hits the boundary. When it's on like this, it kind of bounces and rebounds back and forth and moves in the opposite direction. But when it's off, it'll just stop when it gets to the end. Let me just speed this up a little bit. Scan speed. Bring out the jitter. You'll see it even goes beyond the boundaries when the randomization is introduced. It's just sort of staying at the end. I can go a bit slower. But when bounce is on, it'll move back and forth. Versus off. We'll continue with more granular functions in the next video.